Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Leaders of Tomorrow podcast, a platform dedicated to amplifying young voices in leadership as they share their stories, visions, and aspirations ahead of the 2027 elections. In today's episode, we sit down with Honorable Sungu Oyoo, popularly known as Comrade President, a bold and visionary leader with his eyes set on the country's highest office. A writer and a human rights activist, Comrade President is driven by the belief that leadership can be done differently by building systems that truly serve the people and restore trust in governance.
I dream of a better Kenya. I desire a better Kenya. Kenya where we can all be guaranteed peace, where we can all be guaranteed justice, where we can all be guaranteed dignity.
But before we dive into that conversation, let's hear from the man himself.
My name is Sungu Oyoo. I'm a writer, a human rights activist, and the national spokesperson of Kongamano la Mapinduzi, which is a coalition of progressive organizations working towards economic justice, political rights, gender justice, ecological justice, and freedoms. Most importantly and most relevant to this discussion is the fact that I'm a presidential candidate in the 2027 general elections. I think the inspiration behind running for the position of president came after the 2024 protests and the political processes that followed that. Because one of the things that came out very clearly when we were on the street is the fact that our struggle is a clash between two forces that are diametrically opposed to each other, and that its only logical conclusion is the victory of the people. I am of the opinion that those who occupy positions of leadership in this country do not have the interests of the people at heart, and that we need a renewal within the political landscape. More importantly, I think, is a generational realization, a realization among our generation that the problems that confront us are political and their solutions will have to be political. I think what sets me apart from the other people who are also vying for this position, first and foremost, is that I'm a young Kenyan, and that I am heavily invested in my future as a person, which is intertwined with the future of this country. We still have a lot of years before us, and I would love to live in a better country. I dream of a better Kenya. I desire a better Kenya, Kenya where we can all be guaranteed peace, where we can all be guaranteed justice, where we can all be guaranteed dignity. And the dominant political formations in this country have failed to provide those three fundamental things for the people of Kenya over the past 60 years. Our generation has a historical responsibility to birth this new republic that can at the minimum ensure that we have access to justice and dignity. Kenya has millions of problems, and I might not be able to enumerate all of them at this particular moment in time, but I think we can focus on a few of them. I think one of the biggest problems that we face in this country is with regard to the structure of the economy. And this plays out in different ways. One, it plays out with regard to the question of unemployment in this country. The economic structures or the structures behind the Kenyan economy have simply failed to create opportunities for the Kenyan population. The overall unemployment rate in Kenya today stands at 12%. Youth unemployment stands at a scary 67%, according to data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And every year we have over 1 million young Kenyans joining the workforce. And a lot of them do not have the necessary skills to compete within this workforce. And so I believe that, one, we need to emphasize skill-based education. Secondly, we need to protect the informal sector, which has been under assault recently. We've seen demolitions of markets, Juakali areas across the country, because the informal sector employs millions of Kenyans. But most importantly, in the long term, Kenya must pursue a deliberate strategy of industrialization capable of providing millions of jobs, not only for those who are unemployed today, but for those who will be getting into the workforce in the coming years. Secondly, I think we need to have increased focus on the issue of debt and corruption in this country. Over the past 12 years, the debt that the Kenyan state has taken has really mushroomed. But then the main problem with this careless borrowing is that majority of the money borrowed has not been used in prudent ways. It has ended up in people's pockets, and in instances where it has been used, it has been mainly put towards infrastructure, and in some of the projects have shoddily been done, so there is no return on investment. But at the same time, part of the debt has also been used for recurrent expenditure. We are borrowing to pay salaries, which is a very unsustainable way of borrowing. We are basically living outside of our means. The structure of the economy, of the Kenyan economy, has really never changed from the colonial era, and colonial patterns of economics persist to date. That is why majority of the countries listed, companies listed in the stock exchange are foreign owned. Majority of, a great deal of the land is also in Kenya is owned by foreign entities. A great deal of our resources, so they look at the fishing rights, agricultural produce for export, is done by foreign entities. And so the government has a role to take charge of strategic sectors of the economy and position them in such a way that Kenyans can also benefit from the proceeds that come out of that. And that is one area that we will comprehensively focus on. But more importantly, with regard to debt, is for us to do a comprehensive debt review, an audit of the debt register, to know which borrowed monies have actually benefited Kenya as a country and Kenyans as a people, and which ones have disappeared into people's pockets, and to pursue prosecutions for those who have stolen this money, which we are paying as a generation and as a country, and which we will continue to pay over the next few decades. Is also the question of the taxation levels in this country, because we are still talking about the structure of the economy. And our agenda insists on a mode of just and progressive taxation. In this country, most rich people do not pay taxes, or where they pay taxes, their taxes are heavily reduced. Foreign corporations, a lot of them are given tax breaks by government policy. And then the taxes that are raised are mostly raised from the poor and the struggling and those who are employed in different sectors of the economy. And we will pursue a progressive model of taxation such that we can give relief to low-income earners, and while enforcing taxes on the rich and on corporations which do not pay taxes. Because when we talk about issues like the high cost of living in this country, which is unbearable for most people, as we saw in 2024 with the finance bill, and even in 2025, it's because the average Kenyan is so overburdened that they pay income tax at work. They are then forced to pay additional taxes on commodities, whether it's bread, whether it's milk, whether all these essential commodities, sanitary towels, disability mobility aids for those who are disabled, and even books, which are now subjected to value-added tax, VAT. And so we need to spread this tax such that this burden is not on the average Kenyan alone, but the corporations play their fair share. The rich also contribute to the tax collected. And that is how a country can grow, so people have more disposable income. One of the main problems with this country is that after paying all these taxes, we again subsidize the government. You pay taxes, you expect the government to provide you with security. It doesn't provide with adequate security, so you hire a guard. You pay taxes and expect the education system to work and for your children to be educated, but it doesn't work well. And then you maybe look for a private school or something and pay again for that education, despite having paid taxes to provide that. You pay taxes and expect healthcare, but are still forced to go again to a private healthcare facility because doctors are on strike, or maybe the services in the public hospital are so pathetic that you fear for your life. You pay taxes and expect garbage to be collected. It is not collected, and you have to pay organized groups to come and collect that garbage. So there is the official tax we pay. There is this unofficial tax we are again forced to pay. And so this element of double taxation must be stopped, because when we have a just and progressive system of taxation, which is anchored on systems that work, social systems that work, people can then have more disposable income, and the quality of life for the general population can improve. With regard to education, really, it really is a mishmash. It's a pot of confusion, because we recently, a few years ago, transitioned to the competency-based curriculum, CBC. But if you go to the Ministry of Education today and ask the officials, what is the philosophy behind this new education system? How will this education system contribute, for example, to the industrialization of Kenya in the next 50 years? There is no clear answer. We have to develop a clear philosophy behind our education, so we know exactly why we have this curriculum and where it is supposed to take this country in these coming decades. The government has been engaged in the affordable housing scheme, or we could call it avoidable, because I think it's something that all Kenyans need to avoid. One, the only thing about the affordable housing scheme at this particular moment in time is the word affordable. That is the only affordable thing. The government is building houses on public land. It is contracting companies whose input are subsidized, and then selling these houses to Kenyan people at rates that are not affordable. Some cost 3 million, 5 million shillings and whatnot, which is a price. For example, if you demolish Mukuru slums and construct affordable housing, and then ask the people of Mukuru to pay you 3 million shillings for those houses, what you have done essentially is that you have rendered them homeless in the long run. And so we have seen wave after wave of demolitions happening across the country. And if we are to do a process of constructing public housing, we should emulate the processes that were done in the 60s and 70s, because those who deserved the housing actually got them.
At Manifesto Watch, we've built a platform that allows you to easily compare what different candidates truly stand for, helping you make informed decisions based on issues, not just personalities. To explore Comrade President's Manifesto, visit the Aspirant tab on our website www.manifestowatchglobal.co.ke today.
Lastly, and I think this is something quite dear to most Kenyans, is the enforcement of the Bill of Rights. As a country, we have come from very far, from the 1970s, 1980s, and even the early 90s, when Kenyans were held in detention without trial, when we lived under a dictatorship, the generations that came before us. Those who crafted the 2010 Constitution deliberately had the Bill of Rights in it to ensure that Kenya would never again go back to that place where it had been. Over the past few years, we have seen basically Kenya sliding back almost to the ranks of a failed state, because security agencies in this country have been weaponized against the people. We have seen abductions, malicious arrests, and forced disappearances, especially against those who speak against the state. And so part of our focus will be around, one, restructuring these security organs such that they serve the people. The police, for example, should be a source of security, not insecurity. When you see the police, you should feel safe. You should not feel unsafe. So we have to restructure these security organs so that they serve the people, so that they cease to become tools of intimidation against the people. And secondly is to strengthen independent institutions. Institutions like the Independent Police Oversight Authority, institutions like the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and other structures or institutions that provide oversight, play an oversight role over this police service, because we really are sliding towards a dangerous place. And lastly, with regard to the Bill of Rights, is that we must enforce Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya. Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya, which is on economic and social rights, guarantees every Kenyan the right to health, guarantees every Kenyan the right to education, guarantees every Kenyan the right to clean water in adequate quantities, guarantees every Kenyan the right to housing, guarantees every Kenyan the right to have social safety nets. And so I think Article 43 is a key plank of the Bill of Rights, and if it is enforced such that, for example, in the health sector, we are able to focus on, because now we have SHA, which is a revolving door for theft of government resources. And if we are able to have a system, a universal healthcare system that takes care of the people and their needs with regard to healthcare, but also to re-engineer the health system such that it moves beyond treating people who ail from various diseases, but also focuses more on preventative healthcare, such that we do not wait to fall sick. We look at how to prevent, because you find that, for example, for children under the age of 5, majority of those admitted in our public hospitals are admitted with diarrhea, meaning that if you just provide clean water, then you have put less strain on the healthcare system. And those resources which are then pumped into the healthcare system can go towards having better equipment, better facility, remuneration of doctors, and other things, training of doctors and healthcare personnel, improving that health sector. So I think there's a lot of things that we have to correct, but all in all, my message to Kenyans would be that sometimes you can be oppressed to the extent that you even lose capacity to imagine what freedom looks like. We must dare again to imagine the size of freedom. And we must, beyond imagining the size of freedom, we must actively work towards this new Kenya that we want to create. We must birth a new republic, a republic that can at the minimum guarantee us peace, at the minimum guarantee us justice, at the minimum guarantee us dignity. We have a lot of work, and part of the political process of doing that is the process that is currently led by many young Kenyans from across the country, which is registering to vote, tukue kadi, but registering to vote is not enough. We must show up in 2027, we must turn up and actually vote, because registering to vote and not showing up to vote is a negation of the registration. We must turn up to vote, and after turning up to vote, itabidi tuchunge kura. Thank you. My message to young people is that, history teaches us that there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. And over the past 2 years, we have witnessed decades happening right before our eyes because of the political actions that young Kenyans have taken to create a new society. And so nadhania tuzidi kukaza kamba kama vijana. Tuzidi kukaza kamba against our enemies. Our enemy is one, unemployment. Our enemy is poor healthcare. Our enemy is lack of an effective education system. Because what we are essentially asking for is a renewal in society, to create a new society. And at this particular moment, I think what we should do, of course, we continue register as voters, continue with the registration process, lazima tukue kadi. But more importantly, moving forward is that, one, we must show up to vote in the 2027 elections, because we have the numbers to tilt the political landscape in a fundamental way. But beyond that, pia tutakuwa tunachunga kura 2027.